All right, and some more updates coming from the U.S. administration on the ongoing trade talks with China. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the upcoming Trump-Xi trade deal will bring strong benefits for American soybean farmers, with China resuming large-scale purchases of U.S. soybeans. Speaking to U.S. media, Bessent confirmed that a tariff hike on Chinese goods has been averted and that Beijing agreed to delay its new rare earth export licensing regime for a year. He said that the agreement will provide stability for several years in agricultural trade and marks a key step towards restoring a balanced U.S.-China relations. Andrew Latham, Professor of International Relations, is joining us from Minneapolis at this point in time. Andrew, always good to have you. Well, you know, it's a good start between the Americans and the Chinese, but I'm sure when it comes to these superficial exchanges, there is more than what meets the eye. Donald Trump has categorically said that so far, whatever China has done, even in response to his tariff aggression, has not been enough.
Yes, well, it is a handshake at the moment. It's not a deal that's been signed, sealed, and delivered. We haven't seen the fine print, metaphorically. We don't know what's going on there. We do know that these trade disputes are emblematic, symptomatic of a deeper conflict between China and the United States. Sometimes that's around things like rare earth elements, critical minerals that are strategically important in terms of military kit and whatnot. So that's there. But also in terms of access to markets, in terms of the American project of friendshoring or reshoring, bringing manufacturing back from China to North America and specifically to the United States. So there's a lot still on the table. I see this as a détente rather than a deal. I see that this as a temporary respite, not a resolution to the issues between China and the U.S. But all things being said, it's a positive sign.
Andrew, what do you make of, you know, of course, this is trade that we are talking about, but at the outset, you know, there are, you know, differences between the Americans and the Chinese when it comes to a number of issues. Of course, Taiwan is something that comes to the fore. Can all these negotiations and trade talks happen in isolation without looking at what's brewing in Taiwan at this point in time?
No, and I was kind of hinting at that a little earlier. I think the era of great power competition, which pits minimally the United States against China, not just in the South China Sea and not just with respect to Taiwan, but globally, in Africa, in a certain sense, in the Arctic, in parts of Europe, et cetera, Latin America as well. So that the tensions between the frictions between these two countries are not going to go away. They are particularly manifest and obvious when it comes to disagreements over Taiwan. The United States, for many decades, tried to pretend that the Taiwan issue was not an issue, and did China. During the era of globalization, U.S. and China were trading, and Taiwan and China were trading a lot as well. But under Xi Jinping, nationalism has become a more important legitimating narrative in the People's Republic of China, Beijing. And part of that narrative is we need to get Taiwan back. And so they are preparing to take Taiwan, either by diplomatic means, by military means, if necessary. And the United States is drawing a line and saying, no way. Not just because of the semiconductor production on the island, but because it would sever the first island chain, which is part of an American strategy to contain China. Taiwan is really important to the United States, and it's really important to China. And it remains to be seen how that's going to be resolved. It won't be through a handshake in Kuala Lumpur. I know that for sure.
You're right about that. Andrew, stay on with us. A U.S. warship has arrived just off the coast of Venezuela in Trinidad and Tobago for joint exercises amid escalating tensions between Washington and Caracas. The vessel was seen off the coast of Port of Spain after its arrival was announced earlier by Trinidad's government. The deployment comes just days after a deadly strike on a Venezuelan patrol boat that President Maduro blamed as foreign aggression by the United States. Meanwhile, the U.S. continues to accuse President Nicolas Maduro's government of corruption and human rights abuses. This comes amidst rising tensions between the two nations as Washington increases its military presence near Venezuela, citing anti-narcotics operations. Andrew Latham still with us. Andrew, what do you make of this muscle flexing that's taking place when it comes to the relationship between the United States and Venezuela. A lot of it has to do with the drugs that continue to irritate the American administration, and Venezuela, in fact, instead of halting any kind of its export, is getting extremely defensive about it.
Yes, and I think the drugs, the narcotics trade is only part of a very complicated picture. The Americans have two concerns with respect to Venezuela, one of which has to do with organized crime and narcotics. And so the presence of an American destroyer at Trinidad and Tobago is not surprising. Trinidad and Tobago belongs to, along with the United States, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, which is about dealing with organized crime and narcotics in the Caribbean. So this is not unprecedented, and it's not a precursor to an all-out war on the part of the United States. Having said that, though, narcotics and organized crime are only part of the picture. From Washington's perspective, from Donald Trump's perspective, Venezuela is drifting into the Chinese camp, the Russian camp, perhaps in geopolitical terms, and for deep historical reasons, the Monroe Doctrine, etc., but also for reasons having to do with this moment in history, this great power competition. The United States does not want to see China's or Russia's, but especially China's influence enhanced in what it considers to be its hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere. So this is operating in two different registers on two different levels. I don't think that the dispatch of a single destroyer to Trinidad and Tobago signals anything other than we're serious about the Caribbean, we're serious about Venezuela. It's not a precursor to an invasion or a grand strike against Venezuela.
Andrew, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. All right, well, Argentines head to the polls today for midterm legislative elections that could shape